Some of them are theistic evolutionists. They're willing to accept evolution but believe God was guiding the entire process. It's not my place to tell them they're wrong, any more than it's my place to tell them that they can only baptize individuals as babies by sprinkling. That's not what I'm paid to make decisions about. I don't care if they believe it or not. They are free, if they wish to treat the entire class as an enormous fiction. What I do demand that they do is they understand the material. And I will stand by this. My students may or may not believe in evolution, but if they've listened, and if they've absorbed what I have to say, and if they understand the reasoning that I use, they understand it better than Dr. Hovind. And that's not very difficult. The fact that the statement you made that we never see stars formed is false. The Hubble telescope has caught them in various stages of formation. Changes of 3 nucleotides is fatal to the organism. In certain genes, perhaps it can be. There are other genes that can change in a great many ways without affecting organismal function at all. Mutation rates that have been observed in natural populations are much higher than that. Darwin was a racist. Well, find me somebody living in the 19th century in England who wasn't. And I will agree that Darwin's ideas and evolution in general have been put to a lot of racist uses. So has the Bible. If you want to ban evolution because it's been the inspiration for racism, would the next step be to ban the cross because it's been used as a symbol by those losers in bed sheets who go around setting it on fire? I don't think so. There is a difference between the way you use a theory, an idea, a principle, a religion, and what it actually says. And Darwin was not PC by modern standards. Nobody was PC by modern standards. If you cut all the racists out of history, you would pretty much have to get rid of just about all 18th and 19th century history and literature. He was ahead of his time in a number of ways, believing, for example, that passionately opposed to slavery. Stephen Jay Gould, whom you cited in support of your position, has written entire books on how evolution really does not support racism. What it supports is, as you said, the unity of humankind, that we are all of one family, we are all of one species, we are all descended from a common ancestor. That's Gould's position. That's the position of most. See here, some of the human evidence you mentioned, Nebraska Man and Piltdown Man, those are not seriously being taught as evidence for or against human evolution. And the reason is, science is constantly shifting. Science is constantly changing. All too often, science is taught as a set of facts that you just sort of memorize, spit back out on the paper, and then you're finished. Science is not that. Science is not the facts any more than a house is just a pile of bricks. Science is a constantly renewing process. We've seen some examples of this, about the Haeckel being brought up on court charges for falsifying certain of his drawings. What Kent didn't tell you was that later versions of the same drawings were considerably more accurate. And I say this because I've checked them against actual embryos. He talked about inaccuracy of radiometric dates, and I teach my students about these. There are plenty of things that can screw up a radiometric date. There are plenty of reasons you could get a wrong answer. There are also plenty of ways that we cross-check radiometric dates and can assess their accuracy, and when they don't seem to work, can find physical reasons why they don't operate. We can find physical reasons why they've gone wrong. If your clock or if your watch suddenly said it was 10:47 in the morning right now, you probably wouldn't conclude that our entire system of timekeeping is utterly flawed. You'd assume that something had gone wrong with your watch, something quite ordinary. The same thing exactly can take place in rocks. Well, exactly, except it doesn't involve gears and things like that. But the same processes can be affected, but we can tell when they have been. I teach my students that radiometric dating is not 100% accurate. I mention its fallacies, I mention its flaws, and I mention the ways that we can correct for this sort of thing. My last statement is this. Arkansas Bill 2548 was put out to eradicate inaccuracies, theories, suppositions, etc., and unproven ideas, religions, as Dr. Hovind says, from textbooks that are purchased with taxpayer money. Even a really good textbook is about 5 years behind the times, sometimes quite a bit more. Sometimes publishing companies don't update. Any textbook that you purchase, whether it deals with evolution or anything else, is going to have a certain number of oversimplifications and flaws and inaccuracies and things that we now know are wrong, sometimes because they're not written well, sometimes because they're just copying older versions, and sometimes because they haven't caught up with the new science. Dr. Hovind's presentations on human evolution have not caught up with the new science, because I can think of about 6 or 7 new fossil forms that have been found that have some bearing on where humans came from. Even though he says that fossils provide no evidence for evolution, that's like saying gravestones provide no evidence for history. And so if you support this law, you might as well ban all textbooks right now, because science is not merely a set of facts that you memorize and then get rid of. It's a constantly changing field. It's a constantly changing way of thinking, of coming up with reasonable approximations to the truth and then discarding them when they don't work and coming up with something else. And evolution, regardless of what Dr. Hovind says, is very much a part of that tradition. We are constantly revising, we are constantly updating, we are constantly tossing out bad and putting in better. We haven't absolutely proved it yet. We haven't absolutely proved anything. You will never prove anything absolutely anywhere in science. It was shown by the logician Karl Popper in the 1930s. You cannot get absolute proof. What you can get is, all right, you're putting up the stop sign, so let me see if I can finish this in an orderly fashion. What you can get are better approximations to the truth that is in fact out there. Evolution is very much a part of this growing process. Evolution is as sound a science as anything you are going to find. And while I don't demand that my students accept it, and I don't demand that they surrender their faith, my goal as a teacher is to give them a sense of this dynamic nature of how it changes and how it grows and how it improves. Thank you very much.
There we go. Well, I'm glad to hear that you admit science is constantly changing and improving and progressing. When you get all done climbing the mountain of truth, you will find the Baptists were sitting there all along. And you mentioned about improving the accuracy of the drawings. Let me make sure I understand what you're saying. These are the drawings that Haeckel used to support the embryology idea. Okay? He flat lied. And it's not an improving of the drawings we need to get, folks. On top are Haeckel's drawings. Underneath are actual photographs. Now, if you try, it appeared to me like you tried to imply in your last